Hello, boys and girls. Happy Tuesday. We are going to need our 2 index cards for today because we have 2 vocab words to go over and make our index cards for. And then we are going to be talking about Y ending words. Okay. So our first vocab word is arrived. Make sure you put the vocab word up top so you know exactly what the word is. So when you arrive somewhere, it means you got to where you were going. All right, so I'm just going to draw a road. Okay, and I'm just going to put a house. Because usually when you arrive somewhere, it's usually to a house or a building. And then if you've ever seen on a GPS in mom or dad's car, there's always like this red arrow saying that you have arrived at your destination. So I'm just going to draw that. You can draw anything else you want as long as it has something to do with the word arrived. So make sure you pause the video and give yourself enough time to draw that. And then we're going to flip over our card. I know mine's upside down. That is totally okay. I'm going to write the definition. So the definition of a ride is to get where you were going. Okay. Make sure you draw a line to separate your definition from your example sentence. So my example sentence is, I arrived at my friend's house. And if you're wondering what that apostrophe S is for, is because it's my friend's house. It belongs to her. So I need to make sure I show ownership by putting a comma above. Or not comma, apostrophe, I should say. Sorry, apostrophe S. Okay. Pause the video, give yourself enough time, make sure that you are writing these correctly and as neat as possible so that way you can use these later. The vocab words we did last week, you guys can keep those somewhere. You can throw them away, whatever you want to do. Just make sure that these are kept in a safe place for this week. Okay. Our next word is immigrated. So immigrated means that you're moving from one country to another. So I'm not the best drawer at countries, but let's say this is going to be dear old Africa. Okay. And we'll say this is the United States. Okay. Now, if someone that lived in Africa moved to the United States, they immigrated. So I'm going to draw a suitcase here saying that they moved. Okay. Our definition is to move from one country to another. Now notice we're talking about countries here. We're not talking about houses. We're not talking about states. When someone immigrates, it's from one big place to another. It's a huge move, and it has to do with having a better life of where they're at. So make sure you don't get those two moved. Like if you move from a couch to a couch, it's not immigrated. It's just moving. Okay. So now we have our example sentence. I'm just going to make it simple. My friend, we'll call her Java. Neat name. Immigrated Make sure I spelled that right. Immigrated from Africa. My friend Java immigrated from Africa. Means she's moved. Okay. So once you're done with this, like I said, pause the video, make sure you have both. I will post these in a Google form so that way you'll be able to see them anytime you need to. But make sure you have these. And I want you to keep these in a safe spot where you remember where they are, where you can use them every single day, and you can collect them with the others that we are going to be making. We are now going to be talking about adding suffixes to Y-ending words.
Y. Today I want to focus in on the last one on our list. Now, adding suffixes to words that end in Y is a tricky concept, so it must be broken down into bite-sized steps. For example, why is it that the final Y in baby and happy does get changed to an I, but the final Y in words like stay and valley doesn't? And that's a great question. The first place I like to start when teaching about final Y is final Y plus ing. Now, ing is a very common suffix, and this is a really simple rule, and that's why it's a great place to start. And here is what it says. If you're adding ing to a word, just keep the final Y. Now, here are just two examples, copy and enjoy. When you add ing to this word, to these words, you don't change the Y, you just add the ing. Now, the reason we keep the Y is that if we were to change it to an I, we would have a double I, and double I is not a vowel team in the English language. The only word I can think of with the double I's in it is the word skiing, and that's because it's borrowed from another language. So once your learners understand adding ing to words, the next step when teaching about final Y is when they should change it to an I. Now, this one also is a very common pattern that learners need when they're reading and when they're spelling words. So let's explore that a bit. Final Y gets changed to an I when you're adding a suffix, any suffix to the word. This can be a vowel suffix or a consonant suffix, but you got to remember we're not including ing in this list because it follows its own rule. We just talked about that one. We also need to look at the base word because it needs to have a consonant that comes before the final Y. Let's look at our two examples really quickly. We have baby and happy.
Hi. So if we want to take a Y ending word and we want to add a suffix to it like babies or happier, we have to look at the letter before the Y. So before the Y in baby is a B. Now, if it's a consonant, we are okay to change the Y to an I. Same thing with happy. If we look before the Y, it's a P, and a P is a consonant. So you can change the Y to an I.
If you look at these two base words, you can see they both have a consonant that comes before the Y. In baby, we have a B, and in happy, we have a P. And if we add suffixes to the words, notice we have ES, which is a vowel suffix, and NESS on the word happy, which is a consonant suffix. And because a consonant comes before the final Y and we're adding a suffix to each of these words, we change those Y's to I's when we add the suffix. All right, once your learners understand when they need to change Y to I, they're ready for the third step. Now this time again, we're not going to change the Y to an I before adding the suffix. So final Y does not get changed to an I when you're adding a suffix to a base word, and here's the key, that has a vowel before the final Y. And one of the reasons why I saved this one for last, it may seem easier. One of the reasons I save it for last to be the one to teach is because you're dealing more with vowel teams. All right, so let's look at two examples. We have stay and valley.
So unlike before, we had two words that had a consonant next to the Y. These ones both have vowels. When there is a vowel next to the Y, you can't change it to an I because that is not a vowel team. It has to say AY. Same thing with the EY. Since there's an E, a vowel next to that Y, you can't change the Y to an I. You have to keep it the way it is.
Both of these base words have a vowel that comes before the final Y. And then we're going to add suffixes to each word. We have ED that's been added to stay, and we have an S that's been added to valley. So it doesn't matter again if it's a vowel suffix or a consonant suffix here. But because you had a vowel that came before the final Y in each of these words, we have A before the Y in stay, E before the Y in valley. We do not need to change the Y to I's before we add the suffixes to these words. Here's some things I need you to remember about teaching suffixes to words with the final Y. These are bite-sized steps. Try to start with the simple ing rule. Next, teach your learners